Greetings, everyone. It's Glenn Kellaway from the basement. I've been trying to come up with a video idea, and what I was going to do was pick my favorite albums of the decades, and then it just dawned on me that I could do a desert island video, and that's why I'm wearing my island hat. So I'm going to be stranded on a desert island, and I'm allowed to take 10 records with me, but there's a caveat. I'm only allowed to take one record from each decade, from 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, 2020s. That's 7 records. Then I'm allowed 3 bonus albums from any of the decades. That's the rules. So if anybody wants to pick up on this, that would be fun. So let's get started without further ado. Here are my choices. This was frigging impossible to do because I am leaving behind so many incredible bands and so many incredible albums. So the 60s, I had to take my favorite album of all time, the album that I think is the greatest album of all time. I have to take Sgt. Pepper's. I almost took Blonde on Blonde, but I gotta take the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's. So that is my album from the 60s. What can I say? I mean, it's just like I said, it's my record. So I gotta take it. From the 70s, my God, how many great albums. What were my choices? I was thinking of Aqualung, Plastic Ono Band, Exile on Main Street, and I went with something totally off the wall because I absolutely, over the last 2-3 years, this album has grown to be one of my top 10 albums of all time. I play it constantly, and I don't think I'd ever get sick of it on an island, and that's Arthur Brown's Galactic Zoo Dossier. I just love this record so much. This was one I just received recently off of Arthur Brown's website. There were only 500 of these produced, autographed by Arthur Brown himself, and on some kind of a cool splattered vinyl. It actually sounds really good. It's a nice pressing. So my 70s album is Arthur Brown's Galactic Zoo Dossier. Okay. My 80s album, man, the 80s, for me, I considered The Black Sea from XTC. John Hyatt, who I love, put out Bring the Family. Steve Earle's Guitar Town. Tears for Fears, songs from The Big Chair. The album I went with was probably, I think, the album of the decade. One of the greatest albums ever is Paul Simon's Graceland. So, yeah, I just love this album. The song Graceland and You Can Call Me Al. And this is just an infectious album with African rhythms and amazing album from Paul Simon, maybe his best album. So my 80s album is Paul Simon, Graceland. 90s is a bit of a oddball for most of you, but for me, my one of my musical idols, because I'm a banjo player, I guess, and even not because he's one of the greatest musicians ever, Bela Fleck and the Flecktones. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, One Flew Over the Cuckoo, that's another album. Flight of the Cosmic Hippo, Bela Fleck and the Flecktones, was released in 1991. Was nominated for Best Jazz Album of the Year, has won awards. Great album. This is a reissue and a very hard to find album. Probably a $100 record you're looking at right there. But Bela Fleck and the Flecktones' Flight of the Cosmic Hippo is my 90s album, released in 1991. 2000s. Man, I was thinking about... There wasn't a lot, really, that came out between 2000 and 2009 for me. I thought about Come Away With Me, Norah Jones, Modern Times. Dylan put out a great album in that decade, but I went with another one of my favorite albums, the great Steve Earle, and Washington Square Serenade, which is my favorite Steve Earle album. This has been reissued too. I'm not sure if there's any left. It was reissued in limited quantities. The original pressing, again, goes for probably $75, $100. It's hard to find. But they reissued this one earlier this year, and I'm not sure if you can still get it on his website or not, but I highly recommend it. Steve Earle's great album, Washington Square Serenade, which came out in 2007. 2010s. I have to go with this. Very rarely that an album that came out after the 60s and 70s would ever appear in my top 10 greatest albums of all time, but this one does, and it is Steven Wilson's Hand Cannot Erase. I don't have it on vinyl for some reason, but I got to correct that one day. It's always sitting in the basket at Amazon waiting to pounce on it, but I always seem to buy something else. But the CD sounds great, and I also have a Blu-ray audio disc, which sounds great. But this is Steve Wilson's masterpiece as far as I'm concerned as a solo record. It's a concept album about a woman who disappeared and passed away in her apartment. People didn't know she had passed away, and they didn't find her for like 3 years that she was gone, and she just withdrew from society. It's kind of a sad story, but the album tells the story beautifully, and it's an incredible record. Flows all the way through. Steven Wilson's Hand Cannot Erase came out in 2015. Okay, last but not least, the 2020s. There's only one album for me so far in the 2020s that I consider epic. I'm a huge Bob Dylan fan, and again, with like Hand Cannot Erase kind of running up the charts there on me, I feel the same way about Rough and Rowdy Ways. I mean, this album is definitely probably top 5, 6 Dylan album of all time for me. I absolutely love it. Have never stopped playing it from the time it came out in 2020. And Rough and Rowdy Ways is definitely going with me. Now I'm allowed 3 bonus albums. Boy, was this hard just to narrow it down. All the albums I left out, man. I'm not going to be taking any Stones with me. I'm not going to be taking any Zeppelin with me. Oh man, I can't even think that so many great artists that aren't going to the island. But so the 3 I've chosen are Yes, Close to the Edge, my favorite Yes album, and I guess a lot of people probably agree with me. Yeah, just a masterpiece. Yes, Close to the Edge. That's an album I can play over and over and over again. I won't get sick of. A band that I've become obsessed with, Caravan. You hear me talk about them a lot. I decided to go with what many consider their masterpiece, In the Land of Grey and Pink. I can just stare at that album cover all day if I get bored on the island. This is a great, great record. It just grows and grows on you. Unbelievable. There is a track on side 2, which is the 50-foot. Why can't I see this? I can't read without glasses on. Hold on a second. 9 Feet Underground, which pretty much takes up the whole side 2. It's on the Durham label. Great, great band that has become one of my all-time favorite bands, and this is an amazing album, In the Land of Grey and Pink. And last but not least, man, like I said, it was choice between the Stones and Zeppelin and bands like that, and I ended up going with Hot Rats, Frank Zappa. I got to take some Zappa with me, and this is my favorite Zappa album, so it's going with me. This was the anniversary reissue on pink vinyl, so we'll have some pink vinyl to spin when we get to the island. There's the label. Yeah, so that's my 10. If anybody else wants to jump on this, please do. Remember the rules. 1 album from each decade. That's 7 albums, and then 3 bonus albums. So I hope you guys jump on this. Peace out, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you if I ever get back from the island.